On today's episode of the DeRaud-Messinger Show, we're discussing whether experience will be an issue for the Longhorns in 2024. Longhorns fans, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. It's greatly appreciated. Please do us that one thing. And check us out at HornSports.com. I don't want to take up all your time there. Dylan, let's just get into it. Will experience be an issue for Texas in 2024 with the mass exit, I should say, to the NFL draft?
Yes. I mean, when you look at the key position players that they are losing, I think it's pretty safe to say they will be well represented in the NFL draft. I think Texas fans will have a good time watching the draft, just given the prospects that'll be out there. But when you're losing Jatavian Sanders, Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, I don't want to go through the whole list, but Byron Murphy, Devondre Sweat, right? Like those are the big names that really carried this team in a certain way, or at least set the tone for the entire team this season, or a lot of the bright spots. And so now you have to look to the other side. And the experience that you're going to have is the offensive line and at quarterback. So you got to build from there, right?
Hey, there's some positive. Yeah, I was just going to also harp on that point. The positive experience spin that we can give Texas fans is that offensive line will be returning 4 out of 5 starters. Quinn Ewers announced that he will be back. The running backs, of course, Jonathan Brooks heading to the NFL, but C.J. Baxter and Jaden Blue will be returning. So offensively, Dylan, you have most of it. However, maybe the problem is the group that you're missing is a pretty important group with the wide receivers and tight ends. Just I noted that the leading receiver that returns is tight end Gunnar Helm,
I was
followed.
about to say, tight end position wise, I feel like they're actually in a good spot. We'll have to see if Gunnar Helm can replace the production that Jatavian Sanders is leaving, but I think he played very well when he had his time.
I think so too. And Helm is more of the standard tight end that maybe most fans are accustomed to versus Sanders, who can be lined out wide. And
Yeah.
so he brings a different element to him. Not good or bad in terms of what I'm saying, but just it's going to be tough to not have Sanders. And Helm is, as you said, is going to have to take a big step up. And now the question almost is who's going to fill in Helm's role
Yeah.
more so than what Helm is going to do, because right now he's the top target at that position. But then that wideout, Dylan, Jonte Cook is the leading receiver for Texas, and that's just a freshman, so not too many snaps under his belt. I don't think the concern is that Texas won't have talented receivers or tight ends. I don't think that should be anyone's concern. I think the concern should be there's not a lot of snaps under these people's belts, as I was saying,
Mm.
in the Sarkisian system. Of course, experience at some positions maybe is more valuable than others. I think wide receivers can probably get a little more acclimated, a little more fast, as we saw with Xavier Worthy, who was quite the talent, but his freshman year under Sarkisian was chef's kiss for many, Dylan. Maybe not
And it's
Michigan fans.
experience in yeah. I mean, it's experience. Okay, it's experience in moments, right? Like where it's like Xavier, where they had to grow from his experiences. Then you saw those big plays out of him come the Alabama game, right? So like all of the scars that he built up those first 2 years led him to those moments, and those are similar things that Jonte Cook and Jonte Cook could very well be better, or at least not necessarily better, but just have better production than where he had stats wise during his Longhorn career. But right now, you don't know that. It's speculation, and all you can really do is hedge your bets on the talent. But there's going to be moments where having that awareness of the moment that you're in and what you need to do in this specific moment, those are things that have not been built up by this receiving core. So it's going to be really on Quinn Ewers in a way to kind of help them through this kind of progression.
And I think a lot of fans may wonder, Dylan, why, when everyone talks about how good the recruiting classes have been for Texas, why is depth and experience now an issue? I wouldn't say that's misguided, but I think you just have to look more so, as we're talking about, that these guys have not played a lot of football at the collegiate level. You want them to grow into the role, and then exponentially they'll be more comfortable and you'll see more production. But at the start, you need a little bit of that transition, and that was kind of what a Jordan Whittington was for Texas. That old head, if you will, in the locker room that knew the ways of the culture, knew the ways of the field, and could kind of teach the other receivers that. Now, they added Golden out of Houston as a wide receiver and are still looking at other guys. And Dylan, I would anticipate them to add another guy or two, just given what we've been saying about the lack of college experience. Experience at other programs, of course, is good because you know that they can produce at the college level, but they too will also have to learn that Sarkisian playbook. So I think right now experience is an issue. But as I like to talk about in the high school videos, Dylan, I think over the course of the season, experience is less of a problem as those guys, of course, will be on the field more, get more acclimated. So I think
Yeah.
that's more of an early season issue that Texas will be looking at. But then to move to defense, unless you wanted to jump in there.
I was just gonna say this, and you can call me dumb or not, but there's a spin zone to it, right? In the sense of they're not going to be as afraid as maybe a seasoned veteran, right? Or a seasoned veteran has experienced these levels of things and what could possibly happen in a negative situation. With these young guys, they're not going to be afraid of everything. They've got everything to prove. So there is a bit of that David Goliath. We got a chance until we hear the bell in a certain way.
And I'm sure those young guys, Dylan, are really. I'm going to just say they're going to be fighting for those spots. I don't know a better way to put
Yeah.
it. I'm sure they're not in love with Sark adding too many players from the portal as well because they want that chance to compete, and that's understandable from both sides. As we discussed, Sark wants to add experience to his team, and then those young receivers are saying, hey, well, you know how I'm going to get experience is you're going to put me on the field and I'm going to get to play and star for you. So there's a little bit of that back and forth going on. I do think it'll be at least an early issue, especially Ewers are going to have to grow grow accustomed, grow comfortable to the new unit he has this
Yep.
next upcoming season. Of course, Adonai Mitchell was a new addition for Ewers. But for the most part, Ewers had some sort of comfort, some level of comfort, I should say, with the roster he had. This next season is going to be a big jump for him in terms of what he can do on the football field. And defensively,
Yeah.
Dylan, I know you touched on it a little bit. Tavondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, in the secondary, you have Jade Barron. You have Ryan Watts. Jaron Thompson is entering the transfer portal.
Mm.
Jalen Ford is gone.
Yep.
Defense is losing a lot. Now, I know the secondary did not do too hot, so we are not going to try to sugarcoat anything there. You guys know that more than we do. But even with that being said, Jade Barron, yet again, I preach on this man all the time. He's the most consistent secondary, member of this team, and he's gone. Ryan Watts, he was a little streaky, Dylan, I would say, but he still was, someone that you could rely on. Usually, of course,
Yeah.
Washington and all those other teams. Oh, the nightmare for Texas fans, I'm sure. How do you feel about defense? Do you think this poses a challenge, especially now you got new coaches in the defense too? Of course, waiting on someone in the D line group, but a new linebackers coach as well.
It's going to be a work in progress. I think that's safe to say. I don't think I'm ruffling any feathers by saying that, but I do think there's key players in key areas, and I think you saw that with Andy Hill in the way that he was worked in as a freshman. He is now going in as a sophomore, basically almost leading this team, depending on where they move him to at linebacker. So he's a tone setter that's going to be still there, a constant. And then when you look at up front, you got Ethan Burke on the edge. So there, in some ways, it might take a switch in the sense of Texas might be better on the edge rushing rather than the interior coming up this season. So there's going to be a flip there. But again, I think defense might be less of a toll than people think, just with the talent level and the guys that were getting reps this season in key spots. And even though that there was moments they were just getting exposed, you saw guys appear out of that like Michael Taft and Malik Muhammad that you can point to and be like, these guys have something to build on with just the consistency at which they were playing at, right? So I don't think it's as doomsday as people might perceive. But again, when you lose big names, you can't help but just be like, oh no, especially with just key games and going in the SEC. Like typically you have the 3 games and you're like, okay, walk through some games. But week 2, they're going into the big house, Devon. It's not exactly going to be easy on the new guys.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I'm reading the temperature of the room correctly, Dylan. I think a lot of Longhorns fans maybe haven't even touched on the defense and how that loss of experience will hurt them. You just got to remember, yet again, Sweat and Murphy are gone. But as Dylan is saying, in a different way to put it, addition by subtraction in some level, Dylan. The defensive front, no sir, that is not the case. But the secondary, yet again, Barron, and I'm still a fan of Watts. I know he didn't have all of his greatest moments, but I still liked him overall. Even with those guys leaving, Dylan, there's a lot of talented freshmen that are already on roster, and then the incoming recruiting class, I'm sure, is going to be competing for some spots. Yet again, you don't want to throw these guys into the fire right away, but could there be a potential improvement in the secondary? Maybe. It wasn't the finest of groups, so I wouldn't say it's too difficult, Dylan. But overall, as a team, I don't know if the defense will be better than it was this past season due to the obvious things that we mentioned. But Dylan, yet again, this is an issue for the start of the 2024 season. We'll see if it continues to plague Texas as they roll on. But yet again, we are way too early here, and we'll see. Maybe there's some sort of portal ads as well. But it's a talented group, and a lot of the guys are going to be able to get their shot to compete on the field. So that will be exciting to see in the spring. But more importantly, Dylan, I'm winded. More importantly than my opinion here, what do you guys think about experience for Texas? Are you excited already about 2024? I know we are. Let us know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, have a great rest of your day.